My clock's 12 o'clock. So welcome everyone. So today we are going to do a segment on IEP roadmap. So this is different than IEP road trip. And I wanted to include the link to this resource that we're going over today in the chat. So I just sent that. So that is going to be your tool. Go ahead and click on that. All right. So I like a little trivia on a Tuesday afternoon while everyone is getting over the case of the Mondays. So I want to ask what IEP stands for. Go ahead and put that in the chat. And I'll wait for you guys to respond to that. See a couple responses. We got some rock stars in the chat today in the audience. So it's an individualized education program, right? So it's really developed to really just meet the unique needs of the student. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more. I want to go ahead and introduce myself. I want to make sure too that everyone did receive the link in the chat. That is the link to the materials. If I can get my computer to work. All right, so who's driving today? Well, hold on and buckle up. If you know me personally, I like to drive fast, and we're going to go through a lot of information in 30 minutes. So hopefully we don't get pulled over. Just kidding. My name's Mandy. I serve as a PTI manager. A little bit about me. I have 3 children, 2 children with disabilities that are on opposite ends of what their needs look like. And so it's been really interesting navigating. And then I have a daughter who is typical and she just helps her siblings every way she can. So it's very interesting being a parent, but I've been in the classroom and now serving families. So I'm excited for you guys to be here and we're going to get moving. So today we are not going to go over the full IEP road trip. Today we're going to focus on the IEP and kind of like the nuts and bolts of the IEP. It's really important because 'tis the season for annual reviews, right? So we are receiving a ton of calls with parents not understanding the IEP document itself, and that is why we're here. I want you guys to have this information as you guys roll into the annual review part of the year. So I already sent you guys the link in the chat. If you're just joining us, I'm going to throw it in there one more time so you guys have this, so you guys can follow along. I'm all about people being able to follow along and having this guide in front of them. So on your screen now should be the front of the IEP, the first page, and it's going to have your student's profile, right? So your student name, the school, primary eligibility category, what that is, student UID number. That is actually the student's number that is going to be in PowerSchool. So many parents are like, I do not know what this number is. What does it mean to my kid? And that's what it is. Their date of birth, age, and if they have a secondary eligibility category, and some kids do. And then underneath that, the meeting purpose. So is this the initial referral meeting? Like, is this the initial IEP? The number one. Is it the annual review that should happen at least, every year to make sure your student is making progress towards their IEP goals? Or is it the addendum? And the addendum is maybe, your kiddo is just not making progress towards their goals and the goal just wasn't appropriate to begin with. Maybe additional supports and services need to be put in place. That's what those boxes are to kind of break it down to you. Obviously, next is going to be that meeting date, and it should be the date that you have the meeting. And then the timeline from that is going to be based upon the year category if it's the annual review. All right, so we're going to scroll down a little bit, and hopefully you guys can see that document in front of you because I've shared that link. But the next part is the student's overall strengths, right? And so what input can you share about your child's and their existing strengths and their abilities that the team can build on? And so that's something really important to think about. So this is going to be a huge, self-reflection as a parent. How can I provide input for this IEP team? Super important section, parent concerns, right? So this space is for you to document your concerns. And I always, with families I support, I say, think about this section prior to. And you can provide a draft of your concerns ahead of time because it is really hard if you're ever in a presentation with me and maybe I'm doing like live answering at the same time as presenting. It's hard. So just imagine being the EC teacher trying to capture every little thing you say while you're speaking and everyone looking at them. So how about your EC teacher? Support them, send that to them ahead of time. And then that can really be your parents' concerns can be based upon the academic growth that they're making. Maybe it's really limited. Maybe you have concerns about what is occurring outside of school. Maybe it's school avoidance, homework challenges, all those things. Maybe you have concerns, your kiddo's having anxiety regarding test. These are all areas that you can have that documented under the parent concerns. And then my favorite section, so parents, please pay attention, the vision statement. So this can include short-term and long-term statements. Parents can share what they hope to occur during the life of the IEP and hopes for life after high school. Yeah, you might have a kindergartner, but it's important to really notate, I want my kid to learn to be independent. I want my child to graduate with a high school diploma. The student vision statement also could be captured whenever possible too. So when they get to that transition age, the team can use this information as they prepare for further education, employment, and independent living. There's a lot of times where we just see, I want my kid to be happy, and that is a great thing. But what specifically do you want your child to be able to do by the time they graduate high school? Do you want them to graduate high school diploma? Do you want them to be able to live independently to their capability? So just some things to think about when you are providing that input. And always, it's hard when you're in meetings. I'm a mom, so I have an IEP meeting this afternoon for my daughter. It is totally different when I'm attending as a professional with a family, or, when you're on the other side as an educator, than when you're in the parent role, because we're talking about our child in areas of need. And so it becomes emotional because you have a lot of emotional attachment there. So always write it before. All right. So you're going to scroll on to your next point in this packet I shared in the chat. And if you did not receive it, you hopped on late, let me know and we can send it out again. So the next is the present level of academic performance. So present level should include current academic and functional performance, behavior, social emotional development, transition, and other relevant information. All areas assessed should be addressed and determined and made to whether the data indicates an area is in need for specifically designed instruction. And so this is going to be addressed in the annual goals. It can be addressed in accommodations, specifically designed instruction, behavior intervention. These areas should include all general categories of functioning relevant to educational programming and may include some academic areas like social emotional communication, self-help, pre-vocational, vocational skills. Academic areas could include written expression, math calculation, reasoning, reading comprehension, basic reading, listening comprehension, fluency, oral expression skills. Present levels should include specific skill strengths and specific skill deficits. So the area of need. Indicate where the student is currently functioning. So where they're at right now in this moment while you're meeting with the team. And then be presented in a manner that is easily understood and serve as a basis for the measurable annual goals. So tip for parents. So parents always are like, hey, this are my kids' goals. I don't feel they're appropriate. So, if you ever call one of our parent educators, we might pull up the goals, look at the goals, and then we go to that goal and we go to the present level, compare them side by side, and they should correlate. And you should really see where the student is at right now in the moment. Well, when the IEP was written, I should say. All right, so the next page, considering special factors. So the IEP team must, in case of a child whose behavior impedes their learning, Of that of others, consider the use of behavioral interventions and supports. In cases of a child with limited English proficiency, consider the language needs of the child and those needs related to the IEP. In the case of a child who is blind and or visually impaired, provide for instruction in Braille and the use of Braille unless the IEP determines after an evaluation of the child's reading and writing skills needs appropriate reading and writing media, including evaluation of the child's future needs for instruction in Braille or the use of Braille. And then consider the communication needs of the child. In the case where the child is deaf and or hard of hearing, consider the child's language and communication needs, opportunities for direct communication with peers. And so that's really important, and professionals. In the child's language, their communication mode, their current academic level, and a full range of needs, including opportunities for direct instruction in the child's language and communication mode. And consider whether the student needs an assistive technology device or services. All right, so scrolling on to the next page. So this section has a question regarding adaptive physical education. And so you guys should be able to see, and those that are not familiar with adaptive physical education, it's adaptive PE. So that's commonly what you hear. And that is specifically designed instruction or special physical education. It's for children with disabilities who cannot participate in the regular physical education program with accommodations, and they require that additional support. Sometimes the extended content standards call it the extensions or adaptive curriculum, and this sometimes is considered for students with significant cognitive disabilities. If you're not sure what the extended content standards are and what that looks like, in our follow-up email, I will send out a fact sheet for that, so you have an understanding of what that is. There's a spot on this particular page that asks if there's additional parent concerns, as new ones may come up during the development of the IEP. And there is a spot for the team to document upcoming changes the team may want to consider. Maybe this could be something new in the student's life. Maybe there's an upcoming surgery. There is a new sibling being brought into the family, because that is a huge transition for a lot of kids. And maybe there's a divorce, a medication change, anything that the team may need to be aware of that could affect or impact your student academically. So at the age of 14, the IEP team must ensure that the needs, interests, and preference of the student are considered in the development of the IEP. At that age, the student must be invited to the transition meeting. The course of study selection should be carefully considered into the student's post-secondary goals. So what they want to do life after high school, and this is why it's so important as parents that we are having those conversations early in life and really just ensuring our students have the ability to advocate for their wants, needs, and desires for the future. And then in North Carolina, if you are not aware, there are 3 pathways, 2 of which lead to a North Carolina high school diploma. So the Future Ready course of study, this is a diploma that students without disabilities receive, and many students with IEPs receive as well. But this is getting students ready for college. Then there's the occupational course of study that leads to a North Carolina diploma. It is only available to certain students with the IEP and focuses on from going to high school to employment. So it's that streamlined to get to the workforce. And then the extended content standards, which leads to a graduation certificate. This is for students with IEPs that are being taught on the extensions. The curriculum teaches the essential elements of traditional course of study, English, math, science, and social studies, along with addressing other educational needs to prepare the student for real life situations such as employment, independent living, recreation. And then at the age of 16, post-secondary goals and supports must be indicated on the IEP, and the team should think about what the student will need to make progress towards these post-secondary goals, those life after high school. All right, I thought I skipped a page. Sorry about that. So next we're going to go down to the specific needs are determined by the present levels of performance and should included all general categories of functioning related to educational programming, such as academic areas, the social emotional, the communication, self-help, pre-vocational, vocational skills, and the goals should be designed what the student can be reasonably be expected to accomplish within the life of the IEP as a result. So, and also I want you guys to think, what is a SMART goal? So it should be specific, right? It should be measurable, because how's it gonna be data driven if it's not measurable? It should be ambitious, but it also needs to be attainable within that 1 year, realistic and time bound. So some things to think about when looking at these goals and discussing post-secondary supports. All right, so we're gonna scroll over to the next page. So this is where the team can indicate what, where, and when specifically designed and related services will be provided. And so it's always important to consider that LRE, which is to the maximum extent appropriate, children with disabilities, including children in public or private institutions or other care facilities, are educated with children who are non-disabled in special education classes, separate schools, or other removal of children with disabilities from the regular educational environment occurs only if the nature or severity of the disability is such that an education in the regular class with supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved satisfactorily. So the least restrictive environment, or LRE, for many students is the gen ed setting. Self-contained is more restrictive, and homebound is the most restrictive. So in selecting the least restrictive environment, or the LRE, because I'm going to talk in acronyms because that's what you may hear in an IEP meeting, the consideration is given to any potential harmful, keyword harmful, effect on the child or the quality of services that your child needs. So now we're going to go down to the supplementary aids, the accommodations, modifications. And as you're scrolling through the IEP roadmap that I put in the chat, you're going to see the document a little bit bigger, a little bit clearer because it's on a slideshow, but it also has these comments on the side for you to really consider and understand what that component is on the IEP. So these provide the students with a change of environment, curriculum, format, equipment to allow access to content or complete assigned tasks. Every individual involved in providing services to your student should know and understand their responsibility in carrying out the IEP. And this will help ensure that your student receives their needed services that have been identified for specific modifications and accommodations. I also want to encourage you, as a mom of someone that has a high school student that's almost a full-grown adult this summer, it's really important for your student to know what their accommodations are and why. They get to an age where they may be like, I don't want that accommodation anymore. It's not helpful. I'd rather use this. And so that's also teaching them to advocate, but ensuring even your middle school students understand what their accommodations are, what they look like, and how they support them. And just making sure that they still are appropriate, but they also know what is in that IEP, what they're entitled to, because sometimes they're like, why am I receiving this? Like, this is silly. I don't need this. Or maybe they're like, I need more of this. But it's really important to have those conversations with our children as far in advance you feel appropriate, so they know. All right. So now I'm back to trivia because it's a Tuesday. So students can take their IEP to college. I feel like I should have put some music on. Go ahead and put your answer in the chat. So false. The IEP ends once the student completes high school. Colleges can provide accommodations, but do not provide specifically designed instruction, also known as special education. And that is another conversation, but just so you know, that is false. students cannot take their IEP to college? I like trivia on Tuesdays. All right, so we're going to go over the statewide and district testing. So IDEA requires that schools to ensure all children with disabilities are included in general state and district-wide assessment programs. States can also adopt alternative academic achievement standards for children with disabilities who are students with the most significant cognitive disabilities who cannot participate in regular assessments, even with accommodations as indicated in their IEP. Students can participate in 3 ways, right? So the standard administration, which is the same as their non-disabled peers, with accommodations. So this could be similar to classroom assessments and should be at least in place for at least 30 days before the test date to use the accommodation. But there's also the alternative assessment here in North Carolina, the NC Extend, which is a performance-based alternative assessment designed to assess students with significant cognitive disabilities who are being taught the extended content standards. All right, I'm back to trivia on my Tuesday. Students with IEPs do not have to take end of grade test. These are some really good questions for the end of the year, huh? All right, put your answers in the chat. You guys are doing awesome. False. This one is false. All right, so, oops. I'm messing up. Sorry, y'all. I think this is, hold on. Okay. All right, so progress reports on IEP goals will be issued the same time as IEP report cards, but can be given sooner or more frequently if the IEP determines it's needed. So there's many times where kiddos are making very limited progress or on the IEP progress report, you see limited progress or not enough data at this time. And as a mom in my particular situation, I'm like, hey, can I really get these progress reports more frequently? So for my one daughter who was really struggling at the time, we did it monthly. And it was just to give me a baseline of where she's at, if she's truly making progress. And we looked at the data with those, and everyone may ask, well, how do you know what data is with these? So if you look at your IEP goal and next to it, it's saying how that progress is being monitored, and that's the data that would pertain to that particular goal. So ESY, this is a huge topic of conversation right now with a lot of families. This is not summer school. Services are based on the child's unique needs, so they range widely. And ESY are often intended to help students maintain their skills, not necessarily make progress. During the development of each new IEP, the team must decide if a student is or is not eligible for ESY. Some key things parents and teams should take in consideration is whether the student regresses, slides backwards during long breaks in instruction. And so one way I would measure this with my own child, and I've looked at it with other families, is you look at that beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. And let's pretend at the end of the year, the student was a 520. In the beginning of the year, they're a 320. Those are just easy numbers to remember. And then by the middle of the year, the kiddo maybe got up to 400. And so that's showing that the student's sliding backwards, right? It's that slippery slope. And if you're able to show historically this is happening, it's really important to say to the team, hey, this is just another additional layer of data that I've noticed that my student may require ESY, so they're not losing progress or they're regressing. Also, another thing to think about is whether a risk that a long break will erase most of the gain that the student has made during the regular school year. And this does happen for some students, not all students, but some. And then whether the student is showing that they're beginning to learn a critical skill. It's a window of opportunity that might be lost due to a break of instruction. And also, I want to point out, your signature does not mean you agree. here in North Carolina. It only means you were present and participated in the meeting. So not signing the IEP does not stop the IEP from being implemented as written. So I just want to point that factor out. All right, back to trivia, because I know we are getting short on time. So if the IEP team cannot reach consensus, the LEA representation can make the final decision. And remember, we're talking North Carolina specific. Put your answer in the chat. We have some smart cookies in the audience. All right, so true. It intended for all, IDA intended for all members of the team, which you are included, parents are included, to have participation and work together. But if teams get stuck and they can't reach an agreement, the LEA representative can make that final decision. But it's important to know that teamwork is a dream work, and having conversations, there's sometimes where meetings are just not moving forward, right? And you feel the energy in the room is just kind of adversarial. And it's okay to say, hey, can we take a 15-minute break? And sometimes that break will bring everyone back in, and, you know, people are able to get answers and make the movement that needs to be moved. And sometimes it's okay to say, you know, can we reschedule for a later day? And it's okay. I've done this. I've said, hey, I'm really emotional right now. Everything you're saying is going in one ear and out the other. It's not working. Can we reschedule for another day? And that's okay too. So just some things to think about. All right. So just some things to think about in your IEP road trip. The fact is, there are times when parents and schools do collide, and sometimes there's minimal damage, and sometimes the car is totaled, right? So let's talk about some common areas of conflict experienced by the team. And I just want to go over this really shortly, but stop sign, not all students with disabilities can be found eligible for an IEP. And I'm going to send a fact sheet out for that. The exit sign, an IEP must be reviewed at least annually. If your student is making limited progress, you have concerns, do not wait till the end of the year to call an IEP meeting. Call the IEP meeting, bring the team together. You know, even when you're asking for that meeting, send your concerns prior to, so the team knows what your concerns are and they will ensure that those concerns are covered. Road rage. So emotions can erupt, fingers can get pointed, power struggles, etc. So just remember, during those times, it's okay to take a break and call a meeting. Just like, listen, I don't feel like this meeting's being productive today. Can we reschedule? And that is okay. I think we can all agree we have been there. Right, Andrea? Do you agree? U-turn. Some students regress or stop making progress. And this is a time to have a discussion with the team. Maybe getting additional evaluations done and looking back, were those goals even relevant? Were they truly attainable, or were they too ambitious? Fuel grades, conflict over a free appropriate public education, best quality of services placement. It's important to know schools have to provide what is appropriate, not what's best. So they're going to provide what's economical. And I'm going to give this, I always give this example, and parents get it. We'd all love like a Ferrari or a sports car, right? But economically, what we can afford is maybe a Honda Accord or a Honda Odyssey, just for an example, right? And so they have to provide what's appropriate. And then just remember, there's always state troopers on those roads when you're navigating this IEP roadmap. So the state has dispute resolution options available for families and districts. So that could be a facilitated IEP meeting, mediation, due process, state complaints. But I always want to encourage you as families to try to navigate it at the lowest level. And if you're really not getting anywhere, reach out to us. Work with one of our parent educators. Let's help you problem solve and give you some next steps that you can consider what's appropriate for your family. All right. So, Andrea, I know you're going to go ahead and launch the poll.
Yes.
So you guys can tell me how my driving was. I did not speed too much.
If anyone has any questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat while you take a second to fill out our evaluation. We appreciate it.
And just so you guys know, I will be sending out a PDF version of this presentation and some resources. I know I brought up some different ones. I'm going to put the roadmap in there so you guys have it along with the slide. And I have some other tools that might be good for you guys this year. As we're navigating annual review time, ESY, district and state testing, there's a lot going on this time of year.
Yeah, and I will mention next week we're going to start our April Tool Time Tuesday. Hard to believe. Look for an email by the end of the week coming out with all that information, but I will let you know we are going to be celebrating the month of the military child, and to start that off on April 1st, we're going to be having Triana Miles, who is the ECAC Military Outreach Coordinator. So please join us then. She will be talking about her role and how she helps military families navigate special education.
And April kicks off month of the military child, which is a huge month for our military children here in North Carolina. All right.
There is one question, Mandy.
I did not see it. Are they in the chat? Oh, Q&A. Okay, I got it.
No, it is in the chat. I can go ahead and I don't know why you don't see it, but based on current events regarding the Department of Education, are there any concerns that we should be aware of regarding IEPs or other services?
So I want to encourage you guys to just stay informed, right? And so I think having a current IEP is important. And when we get information, we will share it. But we know as much as you guys right now. So I'm just going to encourage you to just stay in contact with, your schools and your student's teacher. And we will keep you guys informed as we find more information. But at this time, unfortunately, we do not have any information on whether you should be concerned about IEPs. I do not. There are federal laws protecting our children with individuals with disabilities under IDA. So it would take an act of Congress. So I think we'll be okay. Stay tuned. If you're not on our mailing list, I encourage you to be so because we send out information as we get it. So thank you for the question. All right. Well, I'm going to stop sharing.
One question. How can I join the mailing list?
We can send the link in the follow-up email to you.
Yeah, there you go.
I will send the link in a follow-up email for you guys. It'll be easier that way. But we do send out newsletters and we would love to get you on that so you can get up-to-date information as we receive it. But I hope everyone has an amazing week and thank you for joining us. And
Yes.
stay tuned for your follow-up email. Have a good one.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.